Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Week 9 Matt Willson Weekly Kickoff Show. Gerald, we renamed it again.
I'm happy with it. It was a whole lot of tongue tying, I guess, at the start. But hey, look, as long as it's got Matt Willson in it, I think it's a great thing.
Started as a pre-game show, then a pre-week show. The Weekly Kickoff Show just made sense. Maybe we'll stick with this one for more than 1 week. We'll find out.
Well, there's still 5 weeks left in the season, so we'll see.
There's still time. There's still time, but it'll always feature our buddy Matt Willson. So week 8 in the books now. Week 9 just around the corner. Looking forward to getting this one started. A great slate of games coming up this week.
Yeah, look, and a lot of teams from last week, right? Even my team, right? That's why I'm all dressed casual on this wonderful International Women's Day, might I add.
It is International Women's Day.
So, rocking Kelly Kapowski, if nobody knows what it is. Watch Saved by the Bell. It's a very good show. Week 8, my team got back in the win column. A lot of teams are starting to really emerge as contenders.
Yes.
And some of them may be considered pretenders the way they played last week.
Well, let's break down the Week 9 slate of games, and then we'll break down some of the games that are coming up this weekend individually, and then we'll get to kicking off the week in just a little bit here. So starting off Week 9 for us tonight, Minnesota at Denver. Gerald and I are going to call that game. That starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time, just about 25 or so minutes from now. Also at the 8 o'clock block tonight, starting at 8:15, Motor City at Baltimore. We got Chris Curtis and Rochelle Colston on the call.
So. It's going to be real interesting. Love Chris Curtis. Rochelle does a great job. I think she had such an interesting thing to, especially being the only female to be an analyst, right? So yeah. She deserves a trophy for that as well. International Women's Day, Rochelle Colston.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what it's all about. And shout out to Rochelle for filling in. Petey Zeller was on that game, but he's having some technical difficulties. So yeah. Rochelle on International Women's Day says, listen, this is why we get our own days, because we can step up.
Women are the superheroes of the world, if you ask me.
Absolutely. I can't argue with that at all. That's our Friday night block at 6:30 p.m. on Saturday. We'll get things started with Canton at Queen City. Canton just having an absolute powerhouse of a season. Queen City still hanging in there as well. We'll see what they're able to do. Cameron Duty and Rochelle Colston on the call, following up her International Women's Day broadcast with one on Saturday as well. Looking to join Cameron Duty on that call. Can Queen City stand up to Canton? We'll see.
We'll find out.
We'll see. So far, nobody's been able to really score on them. It's kind of wild. 6:45, Houston at Charleston. Colin and Rick on the call, the dynamic duo themselves. 9 p.m. on Saturday, Fort Worth, San Diego. Mark Lopez and Mickey Melillo. Double M7 back in the booth last week. Had a great call. Pairing him with Mark, sure to be an exciting broadcast. 9:15 p.m., Carolina at Portland. We got Cameron Duty again. Double duty this week.
Double duty. And then he's with Alec West. I don't know why. I just want to keep calm. I just Adam West.
Yeah.
Just Batman, as being a superhero geek. That man, he's got to be related to him somehow. Maybe.
Some way.
There's
got to be some sort of connection.
I'm Batman.
We'll have to research that some more.
Maybe that was before.
I don't think he is Batman.
I don't think Adam West used to do that. I'm Batman. That's later on. Later on.
Christian Bale did it quite well.
Yeah.
Was it? Well, I don't know. We should do an entire weekly kickoff show on the Christian Bale Batman voice someday.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to call our game.
That'd be amazing. Or the latest where the last Batman said, I am vengeance. That's was the thing, if you watch that show.
No, I didn't.
It's a good one. You know,
anyway, back to the schedule.
Yeah.
You know,
we get off base.
Sometimes. Sunday night, we get back into football. DC at Seattle. Tyler and Brett on that call. Speaking of dynamic duos, 6:45, Indianapolis at Tulsa. Ramos Lynn and Mike O'Neill. They had a great broadcast.
I love that pairing. Yeah. Them two just work well together. I'm glad you got them together again this week.
Yep, absolutely. Had to get them back in the saddle together. They did a great job. 9 p.m., Vancouver at Los Angeles. DeMond and Eddie. We'll see if it actually happens this time. You know, we've had them on the schedule earlier on in the season, and then one thing comes up or another, and it doesn't happen.
I've been missing DeMond Simeon and Eddie Gage call for such a long time. I feel like it's two guys just hanging out on the couch, watching a ball game, and just call it sitting on the couch.
Yep. So we'll see if it comes to fruition. I'm hopeful. 9:15 p.m. We've got Mexico City at Atlanta. Tyler, he's doing double duty as well. and Brandon Walters with him. So Brett's going to have to, let his Tyler go for a little bit and let him spend some time with Brandon.
He's going to be looking out the window all sad like,
yeah,
that's my Tyler.
And a moose will go by and everything will be fine. He'll be happy again. So the Monday Night Spectacular, 8 p.m. on Monday night, Arizona at Alamo City. Cameron Irvine, Charles Doherty on the call. A fantastic slate of games ahead. It's sure to be a great weekend. So let's break down some of these games. We'll start with on Sunday night. We've got DC at Seattle Sunday at 6:30 p.m. It's a couple of teams with winning records, Gerald. Seattle, they were 4-1 at one point. Now they've lost their last two. DC, they're coming off a bye, but most recently they won over Jacksonville in week 7. Neither team, however, has actually currently has beat, I should say, a team that currently has a winning record. All of their wins from both of these teams have come against teams that still have losing records now. Although the only teams that they've lost to, DC anyway, is the 5-2 Fort Worth Toros and undefeated Canton. So they do have a couple of losses, but losses to teams that are doing great.
Right.
So, should be an interesting matchup. Why don't we start with DC and break that down?
Yeah, and DC, like you said, they lost to the two hottest teams in the league right now. So, and they got beat pretty handily too in those games as well. But look, their offense, they're sitting at 4-2, and their success has come off their offense, which is in the top half of the league with the number 6 rushing attack, the number 12 total offense. The run game has been key to their success. In the 2 losses, running back Kevin Sayers only averaged 1.5 yards a carry across those 2 games.
Right.
So, and in their 4 wins, he's averaged 4 yards a carry in those 4 wins. The passing game, which I think is underrated, with the pass catchers averaging over 16 yards per reception.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and they're not throwing it like crazy, but getting that type of yardage and receptions is really, really good for making up some of those yards when you need to. And they just make plays when they need it. You got tight end Lauren Prococo and free agent Lyric Da Vinci, who come from us in Louisiana. They both have over 20 catches on the season, and both have over 400 yards each.
Right.
Now, if I had to point out any negative about the offense, right, even though they are still good, they're last in the league in third down offense, only averaging 43% on third down. So they got to clean that up if they want to just, beat those better teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, their defense comes into play as well. They've got one of the top defenses in the league, number 3 passing defense, number 2 defense overall. Talk about that.
Yeah, and they're only giving up 19 points a game, right? So, and it was unlike their defense to give up 28 plus points in their 2 losses. But we all do know the teams that they lost to.
Right.
There's a hot Fort Worth and a very, very hot Canton, where Canton's just putting up a god-awful amount of points on
potentially
everybody.
Unstoppable. I
right.
mean, they might run the gambit here and just win them all.
Right. So, and I don't think it's an indication of where DC's at, right? I just think those teams are just maybe a little bit have a edge on everybody else, right? And unlike the offense, defense is really, really good on third down, only allowing opponents 44% conversions on third downs. So if they can keep up that type of clip on defense going forward and, improve their third down conversion rate on offense, I think they could be looking at getting themselves in a high seed if they keep winning going into the playoffs.
Yeah, they've got a great shot. Now, Seattle, on the other hand, they started off pretty strong, like we talked about, just a minute ago. They started off 4-1, but they've lost their last 2 straight. And not only did they lose, but they got kind of beat handily. They got outscored 58-20 in those last 2 games. Like, talk about that.
Yeah, and like I said, it just has not been good for them over the last 2 weeks, right? After they came down Louisiana, beat the crap out of us in our own turf, it almost seems like the tables turned for them, and they just been getting beat, only getting 10 points in each of their last 2 games that they scored. Mm-hmm. So, and quarterback Ty Patak, he's been sacked 8 times with 7 interceptions, 42% passing.
Yeah.
Over those last 2 losses.
Having that pressure on you forces you to throw the ball a little sooner than you like, leads to those picks.
Yeah, and plus he's kind of known for his running too. He's probably the SFL's first true mobile quarterback.
And Marcus Dunhill last week.
Right. And we're going to get to that a little bit later on.
Wait till I see him at the convention.
So running, and his running has been shut down the last 2 weeks, right? His ability to scramble is what makes him and this team run. If he's able to run and scramble and get those yards, they're able to produce. Now, Patak is number 2 in passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
But The downside of that is he is tied for the most interceptions in the league at 16. And with a team that throws twice as much as they run, they may need to start not only type attack, getting him going back in the run game, but also getting their running backs more involved to alleviate some of those mistakes he's making in the passing game.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into their defense a little bit. They are very good versus the run, but they've struggled against the pass. Let's talk about their defense.
and they're ranked last in pass defense, right? And it's just how it's been going for them, especially these last 2 games. It's been showing, right? But their linebackers know how to get to the quarterback. It's kind of hard to say, hey, they're just not so good in the pass defensive side of it, giving up all these yards, but the linebackers get to the quarterback like no other. And maybe that's part of why they're suffering in the passing game, because they are blitzing their linebackers a lot more than most teams. Those linebackers have 9.5 sacks of the team's 18 sacks on the season, which is second best in the SFL.
Yeah.
Now, is it at their own detriment where they're blitzing him and not keeping him covered and allowing them to just pass right to the second level? We don't know.
Right.
But they need they need more of that type of stuff, putting pressure and getting quick pressure on the quarterback to be able to get themselves in a situation to improve.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens on Sunday night, 6:30 p.m. Excited to see that game. So let's talk about some Saturday night football now. We mentioned Marcus Dunhill and his Fort Worth Toros. They just put up the second most points that they've scored all season and went ahead and beat the Mexico City Aztecs, but also in the closest game they've had all season. It was a 1-score game. They take on San Diego in San Diego on Saturday at 9 p.m. Fort Worth, they have the number 1 strength of schedule and number 1 strength of victory so far through the season. 31-17 is the combined record on their schedule. 21-13 is the combined record on their victories that they've had. And through it all, they've come through it 5-2. So an incredible performance against all odds. San Diego, on the other hand, they're at 3-3. They lost the opening 2, then they went on to win 3 straight. A narrow loss to Baltimore in week 7. And now they're coming off a bye. So they've had some time to kind of regroup and prepare. Fort Worth, they took the lead of the South this past week. San Diego, they're hoping to potentially take the lead of the Pacific Division if they can beat, the Toros, and if, Seattle is able to get things done versus DC. So, let's talk about Fort Worth. Their offense definitely has emerged as one of the best.
Yeah, and by winning 4 straight, right? The running game is to credit for much of their success offensively, in my opinion. Over the last 4 games, they have averaged 138 yards.
The Aztecs shut down that running game, which includes
Marcus Dunhill's 87 rush yards last week against Mexico City.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Now, I don't think any other quarterback in the league thus far, I didn't really look in that far into it, but 87 yards is a bunch. I remember seeing Dunhill run around. There was nobody there for like 40 yards, and he ran it in.
Yeah, we're going to keep rubbing that in.
It was actually a thing of beauty seeing it, because it's something we've never seen in SFL before. Right, that along with Dunhill being able to protect the ball in the passing game has them rolling on offense. When you have Hacker and EJ Minson, both top 8 in receptions on the season, along with what they're doing run game, that's just been really, really good for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, give credit where credit's due. Marcus Dunhill did a fantastic job. The coaching staff did a fantastic job putting him in that position to, set a league record. Always fun to have a league record set against your team, isn't it? Good times.
It's not.
Good times.
We had a record-setting. Seattle had a record-setting 4th quarter against us. It was not good. It don't feel good. It does not feel good.
Thanks, Toros.
Thanks, Nemesis.
Anywho, no, we're not bitter or salty at all.
Not at all.
We just have a platform and we just choose to, vent on it a little bit.
I think it's almost throwing shade at ourselves, but whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, hey, we suck and you guys are great. Thanks for that. Anyway, let's talk about their defense. They are starting to really round into form. They're looking like the defense from last season. They're getting it. I mean, we did put up 31 against them, but we still lost.
So look, and they have 8 interceptions with 7 sacks and only allowing the opponents 45% passing and only allowing 53 rush yards a game on the ground. So, the defense only allows 39% on 3rd down. Number 2 best.
Yeah.
Rush defense in the league as well, right? They have no noticeable weaknesses on defense, over the last 4 games. It's like they just become well-rounded, and they're looking like the, Fort Worth Toro team that we seen last season when they went undefeated throughout the regular season last year.
Yeah, so they've got, as good a shot as any team, going up pretty much against any opponent. So we'll see how far they're able to take this. San Diego, we talked about how they lost the first couple. They then won 3. They lost, one. So they've won 3 of their last 4. They're balanced and efficient. Talk about San Diego.
Yeah, and quarterback Johnny Pickler is one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. He's at 61%, completing 61% of his passes.
Yeah, top 4.
Yeah, it is. It's top 4 in the SFL. And they just have had very good coaching. They've been setting their players up for success with the game plans they've been putting in week in, week out. Even in their last loss a couple weeks ago before the bye week, they still were in that game. They were still playing good. I don't think it's anything they did wrong. They had a couple of missed opportunities during that game that they could have capitalized on, but they didn't play bad. They've been playing how they've been playing, and I think they just go on and they just, improving. And they're not blowing anybody away or nothing.
Right.
They're about middle of the road, but it works for them.
Yeah.
And it's been working.
It's kind of the same sort of storyline with the defense as well. I mean, they don't have any players that are lighting up the stat sheet, but, they're getting the job done.
And it shows with them having a number 4 pass defense and the number 5 total yards allowed defense, right? So, and they have the typical bend, don't break defense, which has helped them win those 3 of the last 4 games after their 0-2 start. So I think that San Diego is a sleeper team that people need to watch out for, especially in the Pacific. They're they could take a lead to Pacific, and who knows, it might be the very first time this season that Vancouver does not win the division.
Could be. Will that offense and defense be enough to best the Toros, though? We'll find out Saturday night at 9 p.m. So excited to see that game. So let's start talking about tonight's games. We got a couple of good ones here on Friday night to get Week 9 started. Let's talk about the 8:15 showdown between the Motor City V8s, Baltimore Vultures. Motor City, they're at 2-5 right now. They've been 2-5 at this point in the season a couple of times in their history. They did get their second straight win last week over Los Angeles. They won that game 24-21, so they put up some points. Baltimore, they're at 3-4. It's kind of uncharted territory for them. It's the first time in Baltimore Vultures franchise history that they've ever had a 3-4 record. It's never taken place. Never been done. They lost last week to Arizona, 27-17. Baltimore, they're tied with Fort Worth for the number 1 strength of schedule, though. So they've played some good opponents.
Right.
They lost to Queen City in week 1. We talked about Queen City. They're doing good this season. But they've also lost to some SFL powerhouses in Canton and Florida, who
both undefeated.
Everyone's lost to.
Everyone's lost to. Yep.
So, those are a couple of their losses. And then we talked about Arizona. Arizona, fantastic team as well with a winning record. So, they've had quite a battle. So 3-4, I'll give credit to my Aztecs too. Also 3-4, but lost every game by 1 score. Baltimore in the same sort of territory. They didn't lose every game by 1 score, but they've played some really tough teams.
Tough schedule they had.
3-4, maybe with an asterisk. Motor City, they're still fighting. They want to make a name for themselves. They always have. They've had some good seasons. They've had some bad seasons. There's still time to make this into a good season. But, both of these teams need to get a little something switched over tonight and, get back to some winning. So let's talk about Motor City and what they've got going on offense.
And they've had, I think, what's probably their most complete game and their best game all season when they beat LA last week, right? So. Yeah. King Jackson, good. Right? King Jackson had 78% of his passes complete with 2 touchdowns. The run game was better as all 3 ball carriers combined to rush for over 100 yards, right? They had a couple of halfbacks, a fullback, right? Their offense, though, is ranked number 24 in offensive output. But if they can replicate what they did last week, it could vastly improve, and they might get themselves more wins in the win column, to maybe salvage their season.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week. We actually had broken down the Motor City Los Angeles game, and we talked about how it's a whole new season for them. So just flush the first half. It's done. It's gone.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. It's over with. So if you just look at it in second half of the season perspective, going into this week 1-0. And that's how they have to look at it and try to get to 2-0 on the second half of the season. Their defense, we'll see if they can help get them there. But their third down defense is where they've struggled all season so far, and that's it's been a detriment to them. It just keeps your defense on the field too long.
Right, and that's the thing. And when you're allowing 67% conversions on third down, but the odd thing about it is they're allowing that high of a percentage to be converted against them on third down. The odd thing about it is they're one of the best when their opponents get in the red zone and keeping them from scoring, right? So it's odd to say that, hey, look, we'll let you get all in the red zone, but then we're kind of, we want to slow you down and maybe pick a ball off and stuff like that and force opponents to do something they're not ready to do. So they're a third best in their red zone defense in the league, which is something I could keep in. Now, this team is young and talented. If they can just come together, bring it all together, and be a little bit more consistent as they were last week across the board, offense and defense, I think they might find themselves building. Maybe not this. I don't think that they're this season, but toward next season, they're able to retain this roster and do it. I think they could be an extremely good team for next season.
I agree, and I'm interested to see how that plays out. Let's talk about Baltimore, 5-time SFL champions. Some might say, oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Right. Look, and it's not the 5-time champs we have known.
It is not.
Right. And people don't realize that they have actually been to, 6 straight consecutive. Well, maybe this is, if they make it this time, they've been to 5 straight consecutive championship games they lost last season.
Enough. They've been doing enough.
Yeah. They've been. It's like it's time for somebody else. Right. But the offense isn't the problem here, right? They boast a top 8 offensive points per game, passing and total offense, led by Wigmore, 13 touchdowns on the season, number 2. Wide receiver Ivy Irvin has 47 catches, is 3rd in the league. He has 820 yards receiving, number 2. Touchdowns by him is number 2. He had 6 touchdown receptions. And the run game with Warren Murray and T.R. Gaines is solid, with averaging over 100 yards a game.
Yeah, a couple of legends in the run game right there. But their defense is ultimately where they've struggled, and is what's cost them some games. Talk about that.
Right, and look, and they have matched. This is crazy. They have matched the most losses they have ever had at 4 in their 11th season existence. People don't realize, and we're in week whatever. So it just goes to show how dominant they've been since they've been in the league. 4 is the most they have ever lost,
and we're only in week 9.
And they actually have a losing record at this point too. So it's kind of odd to think of it that way, right? So but their defense is last in yards allowed in the league, giving up nearly 400 yards a game to their opponents, 27 points a game to their opponents, puts them 4th worst in the SFL in points allowed. And look, it took a while for, I think, the league to kind of get a grasp of what Baltimore was doing, but teams around the league are starting to figure out what they have to do and what they're able to do to be the best of 5-time champs, and they're doing it. And if defensively, if Baltimore does not correct that, I think they could be on the outside looking in for a very long time.
Kickoff in about 20 minutes. We'll see what they're able to do against Motor City tonight. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to get the first game of the week started. Minnesota at Denver. Minnesota, they only won 4 games last season. They're at 6-1 right now. They were on a bye in week 1, and they did lose in week 2, but then they won 6 straight. Most of those games have been by double digits. So the only team in the league that has gone to the red zone and scored some sort of points every single time. They've had 21 trips to the red zone. More than half of those were touchdowns. All the rest of them were field goals. Haven't turned it over a single time.
It's impressive.
Yeah. Denver, on the other hand, they're having another struggling start to their season. They won the championship back in season 16, but since that time they've struggled to get things going. They've had no more than 3 wins by this point in the season, in any of the last 6 seasons, counting this one. They're sitting at 2-5. They're last in the Central Division, and they're taking on the division leader tonight. So they've got an uphill climb. But let's talk about Minnesota first and what they've got to do.
Well, they got 6 straight wins. They have the number 1 passer in the SFL, Johnny Reno, 1,900 yards through the air, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The best 12 touchdowns and 6 interceptions is the best touchdown to interception ratio in the league by far.
Yeah.
And the 4 pass catchers they have 4 of them, which have over 20 receptions, and 3 of them have over 300 yards receiving thus far on the season. Look, and that is why they are the number 2 offense. They're able to just produce that. They love to throw the ball. Now, I would like to see them get the running game going a little bit more than what they had, because now it's working for them.
Yeah.
But could it get them in a situation of passing, like them passing too much, somebody stops them? But if it ain't broke, you don't fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. Their defense, number 3 scoring defense, number 6 in yards allowed. Talk about that.
Yeah, and they just know how to stop teams on third down. 42% conversion on third down. They're allowing their opponents, which is one of the best in the league. And how do they do that on the passing down to get off the field in third down? How do you do that? You get in the passing lane, and you knock the darn ball down. They have done it more than any other team in the league, knocking down 51 passes by the opponent.
It's crazy.
Because typically when they throw, teams are throwing on third down, and they're getting in front of and they're knocking balls down. They're a very, very dangerous team right now, and they're looking really good. They're looking like the Minnesota team that we saw from a few seasons ago, not what we saw last season.
Yeah, exactly. Looking forward to seeing what they're able to do. Denver, like we mentioned, they've lost 4 straight. They just haven't looked quite right. They've had moments where they've looked great. They've had moments where they just seem like they're stuck in the mud.
Yeah, and Gene Strother completes his throws with 68% of his passing. Not a huge yardage. Like the wide receiving core is ranked 23 in yards per reception, right? That's near last. And their inability to stretch the field vertically, I think, has slowed down their offense, especially when you're a run-first team.
Yeah.
The run game can't carry the load as much as they would want, which is ranked number 4. It's really good, but they can't be put in positions where you're playing from behind and expect the run game to catch up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. The defense, they've been stopping the run has been an issue for them. They're allowing over 120 yards a game. They're just kind of hemorrhaging in the run game. Talk about
right. And what's happening is they're actually giving up 23 points a game. When your offense is only scoring 19 points a game, it's not any kind of a recipe for success. It doesn't give the defense any room to work. It doesn't give any offense any room to work. Their pass defense is 6th best in the SFL.
Yeah.
Look, and they will need that secondary led by strong safety Jeff Malinishin to try and slow down the Minnesota passing offense. I mean, they have a shot. I don't know.
Yeah, another former Louisiana player. You like
that's what I love.
Give them little shout outs.
I love me some Jeff Mel.
Yeah. How can you not? He's a great dude.
He sure is.
So that game starts just minutes from now. But first, Gerald, let's make some picks. Let's talk about those picks. So. Man, have you played catch up?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, at one point I was like destroying you, and I thought, easy victory. This guy don't know a dang thing about picking games.
I still don't.
Well, yeah, you got 6 of them right in the past 2 weeks. So,
undefeated the last 2 weeks.
I am still winning, but not by much. 13-10, my record. Yours is 12-11. So we'll see what happens this coming week. So let's talk about this week's picks. We'll start with DC at Seattle. What do you got?
I'm a pick DC. I think Seattle is struggling right now. DC, like you said, they lost to top tier teams, and at this point I don't think Seattle is a top tier team. I think DC goes into Seattle and takes the win.
I agree with that pick. I got to also pick DC for the exact same reasons. The only 2 losses they've had were to top tier teams, and I think Seattle's just struggling, and maybe they turn it around at home, but, type attack, throwing picks, not really able to get the run game going. I think DC gets that win. Fort Worth at San Diego. Who do you got?
I have San Diego. The reason being, I didn't mention my stuff because I want to save it for this time here. Reason why I have San Diego beating Fort Worth, the teams that they have beat have been some of the better teams in the league. They play up to their competition, and I do think they play up to their competition this week, and they take the win at home against Fort Worth.
I think San Diego will play up to their competition, and Fort Worth will still beat them anyway. Why do I say that? Because I think that Mexico City played up to the competition, and they still beat us anyway. Marcus Dunhill getting it done. I think Fort Worth gets the win. Motor City at Baltimore. Who do you got?
I got Baltimore. It's no question. Motor City is not quite the team that they want to be. Baltimore is still somewhat of the team they want to be. Yeah. Baltimore takes it.
Ditto. Can't say it any better. Ditto. Baltimore will get the win here tonight. At home. They hardly ever lose at home. It's just what they're going to do. So, hey, kickoff is seconds away. We got to get up in the booth. We got a game to call, the Matt Willson Weekly Kickoff Show, Week 9 edition in the books. I see we got a super chat waiting for us. I can't read it from here. My eyes aren't that good, but we're going to call that one out in the game. So thank you to whoever you are. We'll find out in just a minute. That's it from here. We'll see you in the booth, and looking forward to Week 9. And happy International Women's Day, everybody. Have a good one.
Helicopter.